I found the hotel receipt while looking for my insurance card. Just a crumpled piece of thermal paper wedged between the seats of Emily's Honda, barely visible in the crack where leather met plastic. The Riverside Inn. Room 237. 2 nights, 3 weeks ago. The same weekend she'd told me she was visiting her college roommate in Portland. My hands went numb. I sat there in our driveway, engine off, groceries getting warm in the trunk. The receipt showed 2 key cards issued. Champagne from room service. Late checkout. I'd called her that Saturday morning around 9, and she'd answered slightly out of breath saying she and Jessica were just heading out for brunch. Background noise that could have been anything. Could have been anyone. The Riverside Inn was 40 minutes from our house in Tacoma. Not Portland. Not even close. I pulled out my phone and opened our shared credit card account. The one we used for everything. The one that was supposed to keep us honest and transparent about money. I scrolled back 3 weeks. Nothing from the Riverside Inn. Nothing from that weekend at all except a gas station charge in our neighborhood and a grocery store purchase I'd made myself. She'd used a different card. One I didn't know about. My name's Ryan Caldwell. 34 years old, married for 7 years to Emily Caldwell, née Parker. We had 2 kids, Olivia, 6, and Nathan, 4. I worked as a civil engineer for the county. Emily was a pharmaceutical sales rep, which meant irregular hours, occasional overnight trips, and a salary that nearly matched mine. We had a good life. A house with a yard. Family dinners most nights. Weekend soccer games and playground visits. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were solid. I thought I knew her. The front door opened. Emily stepped out onto the porch, still in her work clothes. Navy blazer, white blouse, those heels that made her 3 inches taller. Her dark blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She smiled and waved. "You coming in? The kids are asking about ice cream." I looked down at the receipt in my hand. The paper felt like it weighed 10 pounds. "Yeah," I called back. "Just got a work call. Give me a minute." She nodded and went back inside. Through the window, I could see her scoop Nathan up, tickling him until he squealed with laughter. The same woman who'd kissed me goodbye every morning for 7 years. The same woman who'd held my hand in the delivery room twice, who'd cried with me when we bought this house, who'd promised to love me in sickness and in health. The same woman who'd apparently spent 2 nights in a hotel room 20 miles from home and lied about it. I needed more information before I confronted her. Accusations without proof would just give her room to maneuver, to explain it away, to make me feel crazy for even asking. I'd seen it happen to my buddy Trevor. He'd confronted his wife about suspicious behavior. She'd gaslit him for 3 months, and by the time he found actual proof, she'd already moved money around and consulted a lawyer. I wasn't going to be Trevor. I put the receipt in my wallet and grabbed the groceries. Inside, I played dad like nothing was wrong. I scooped ice cream for the kids, chocolate for Olivia, vanilla for Nathan. I asked about their day at school and daycare. I helped Nathan build a tower with his blocks while Emily started dinner. I laughed at Olivia's knock-knock jokes. I was an actor in my own life, reading lines I'd said 1,000 times before while my brain ran calculations in the background. The Riverside Inn. 2 key cards. A credit card I didn't know about. After the kids were in bed, Emily and I sat on the couch watching some home renovation show we'd gotten into. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, her hand resting on my thigh. Normal, comfortable. 7 years of practiced intimacy. "How was your day?" she asked during a commercial break. "Fine. Boring meetings. Permit reviews." I kept my voice steady. "How about you?" "Exhausting. Dr. Patterson's office was a nightmare. They're switching suppliers again, and I had to basically repitch our entire product line." She sighed. "I might have to do an overnight in Spokane next week. There's a hospital system out there that's considering a major contract." "Overnight?" "Yeah, probably just one night. Wednesday or Thursday, I'll know more tomorrow. I nodded, watched the TV, felt her warmth against my side, and wondered if she could feel my heart hammering. "That college roommate you visited last month," I said, keeping my tone casual. "Jessica, right? How's she doing?" Emily didn't miss a beat. "She's good. Going through some stuff with her boyfriend, but she's hanging in there." "Why?" "Just curious. You don't see her much anymore." "I know. It was nice to catch up." She squeezed my leg. "We should do a couples thing sometime. You'd like her boyfriend. He's into hiking and craft beer. Very Pacific Northwest." The lies came so easily, so naturally, like she'd practiced them. I made it another hour before claiming exhaustion and heading to bed. Emily stayed up. She was a night owl, often working on her laptop or watching TV until midnight or later. I lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of the television downstairs. My phone was on the nightstand. I picked it up and searched for private investigators in Tacoma. Found 3 with decent reviews. Bookmarked them all. Then I opened our phone account and downloaded 3 months of Emily's call and text records. It would take time to go through them, but I had time. I had all night, lying here in our bed, in our house, next to the space where she'd eventually come to sleep. The evidence was out there. I just had to find it. The phone records arrived in my email at 2:47 a.m. I was still awake. I'd been lying next to Emily for 3 hours, listening to her breathe, watching the ceiling fan rotate in the darkness. She slept the way she always did, on her right side, one hand tucked under her pillow, completely still. Peaceful. The sleep of someone with nothing to hide. My phone lit up on the nightstand. I grabbed it before the second buzz, sliding out of bed and padding down the hallway in my boxers and t-shirt. The house was cold. I hadn't adjusted the thermostat before bed. In my home office, I closed the door and sat at my desk without turning on the lights. The glow from my laptop screen was enough. I'd paid $89.99 to a service that promised comprehensive call and text records within 24 to 48 hours. They'd delivered in 16. The spreadsheet loaded. 3 months of data. Emily's cell number across the top. I started with the weekend of the Riverside Inn. Saturday, March 18th through Sunday, March 19th. My cursor hovered over the date column, then I filtered the results. 17 calls to a number I didn't recognize. The first at 9:23 a.m. on Saturday, duration 2 minutes. Another at 10:47 a.m., 6 minutes. Then 1:15 p.m., 3:42 p.m., 6:18 p.m. The last one at 11:56 p.m. on Sunday, 12 minutes. No text to that number, just calls. I copied the unknown number into a reverse lookup site. The first 3 were free trials. All of them returned the same result. Carrier, Verizon Wireless. Location, Tacoma, WA. Owner, information not available. A burner phone. Or someone who'd paid to keep their information private. I went back to the spreadsheet and expanded the date range. January through March. Searched for that same number. It appeared 127 times. The first call was January 4th at 7:12 p.m., 4 minutes. Then nothing until January 9th. Then January 11th, 14th, 16th. The frequency increased through February. By March, there were calls almost every day, sometimes multiple times a day. I cross-referenced the calls with my own calendar. The 7:12 p.m. call on January 4th happened while I was giving Nathan a bath. I remembered because he'd dumped an entire cup of water on his head and gotten soap in his eyes. I'd been in the bathroom for 20 minutes, trying to calm him down. Emily had been downstairs. "Making tea," she'd said when I came down with Nathan wrapped in his dinosaur towel. The call on January 9th at 8:45 p.m. I'd been at a city council meeting that ran late. Didn't get home until almost 10. January 11th, 6:30 a.m. I'd left early that morning for a site inspection in Olympia. Emily had still been in bed when I left. Or I'd thought she was in bed. Maybe she'd been in the bathroom, phone pressed to her ear, voice low. I kept scrolling. The pattern was clear. Calls when I was at work. Calls during Nathan's nap time. Calls after the kids went to bed when Emily would say she needed to catch up on emails or prep for a client meeting. I searched the records for my own number. Found myself scattered throughout. Brief calls during the day, usually logistics. Can you grab milk? Running 10 minutes late. Did Olivia's permission slip get signed? We used to talk more. I remembered when we first started dating, hour-long conversations about nothing, plans and dreams. She'd call me from her apartment in Seattle, and I'd lie on my bed in my studio, phone getting hot against my ear, and we'd talk until one of us fell asleep. Now our longest call in 3 months was 8 minutes. A discussion about whether to refinance the mortgage. I minimized the spreadsheet and opened a new browser tab. Typed Private Investigator Tacoma, Washington into the search bar. I'd bookmarked 3 firms the night I found the receipt. Now I actually looked at them. The first had a website that looked like it hadn't been updated since 2008. Grainy photos of a man in a fedora. Tagline, "We get results." The second was better. Professional headshots, list of services, client testimonials, specializing in infidelity investigations, surveillance, asset searches. Rates started at $125 per hour with a 4-hour minimum. The third didn't list rates, just a contact form and a phone number. I clicked back to the second one, read through their process. Initial consultation, surveillance plan, photo and video documentation, detailed reports. They offered GPS tracking where legally permissible and background checks. My cursor hovered over the contact form. I thought about Trevor again. The way he'd looked when he told me about his divorce. We'd been at a barbecue, standing by the grill, beers in hand. His kids were with his ex-wife that weekend. He'd had that hollow look people get when they're still processing loss. I confronted her the same day I found out, he'd said. Came home, threw the evidence on the table, demanded answers. Biggest mistake I made. What should you have done? Kept my mouth shut. Talked to a lawyer first. Got my ducks in a row. He'd taken a long pull from his beer. By the time I filed, she'd moved money around, talked to her own attorney, built her case. I was playing catch-up the whole time. How'd it end? 50-50 custody. She got the house. I got to keep my retirement at least. He'd stared at the grill, watching the flames. Could have been worse. Would have been better if I'd been smart about it. I closed the laptop. Not yet. I didn't need a PI yet. I had the phone records. I had the receipt. I needed to know what I was dealing with before I spent money on surveillance. The Spokane trip was in 6 days. Emily had mentioned it again at dinner, casually, the way she mentioned everything now that I was paying attention. I'll leave Friday morning, be back Sunday afternoon. The conference is at the Davenport. I'd nodded, asked if she needed me to take the kids anywhere that weekend. She'd said no, just the usual. Olivia had soccer Saturday morning. Nathan had a play date with the Kowalski's kid on Sunday. I could check, call the Davenport, ask if there was a pharmaceutical conference that weekend. But if Emily had been careful enough to get a separate credit card, she'd probably been careful enough to make her lies checkable. The smarter move was to see where she actually went. I reopened the laptop and navigated to Amazon. Searched for GPS tracker. Found one marketed for teen drivers and elderly parents. Magnetic case, real-time tracking via smartphone app, 2-week battery life. $64.99 with Prime shipping. I added it to my cart, then paused. If I ordered it to the house, Emily might see the package. I changed the delivery address to my office. Selected next day shipping. The confirmation email arrived 30 seconds later. Delivery by 8 p.m. tomorrow. I cleared my browser history and deleted the email. Stood up and stretched. My back ached from hunching over the desk. The house was still dark, still quiet. I walked back down the hallway, past Olivia's room where I could hear her stuffed animals tumbled on the floor, past Nathan's room where his nightlight cast dinosaur shadows on the walls. Emily hadn't moved. Same position, same peaceful breathing. I slid back into bed, careful not to jostle the mattress. Lay on my back and stared at the ceiling fan again. 127 calls in 3 months. The number kept running through my head. That was more than one per day, averaged out. More than Emily called her own mother. More than she called anyone. I tried to picture who was on the other end. Someone from work, maybe. A doctor she called on, charming and available. Or someone from the gym she joined in December. New Year's resolution, she'd said. Get back in shape. She'd been going 3 times a week. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, Saturday mornings. I'd been home with the kids, making dinner or supervising cartoons. Or maybe it was someone I knew, a neighbor, someone from Olivia's school. That felt worse somehow. The idea that I might have shaken this person's hand, made small talk about lawn care or the Seahawks while they were sleeping with my wife. Emily stirred beside me, rolled onto her back, her hand brushing against my arm. I held perfectly still. She settled again, her breathing evening out. I wondered if she dreamed about him. If she woke up sometimes and had to remember where she was, who she was lying next to. If it was hard to keep the lies straight, or if it came naturally now. The clock on my nightstand read 4:17 a.m. I had to be up in 2 hours. Had a project meeting at 9, site visit at 11. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep. The GPS tracker arrived in a brown padded envelope at my office on Tuesday afternoon. I signed for it at the front desk, tucked it into my laptop bag, and went back to reviewing drainage calculations for the Henderson Valley Development Project. The numbers swam in front of my eyes. I'd read the same line 4 times. Emily's Spokane trip was 5 days away now. That evening, I waited until she was in the shower before I went out to her Honda. The tracker was smaller than I'd expected, about the size of a deck of cards, black plastic with a magnetic strip on one side. The product description promised real-time updates, geofencing alerts, and a 60-day battery life. I'd paid extra for rush shipping and the premium data plan. I crouched beside the rear wheel well and ran my hand along the inside of the frame. Metal, cool, and slightly gritty with road dust. The magnet clicked into place with a satisfying snap, hidden up inside where no casual observer would ever see it. I tested it with a gentle tug. Solid. The bathroom window glowed yellow above me. I could hear the water still running. Back inside, I washed my hands and opened my laptop at the kitchen table. The tracker's app showed a blue dot on a street map, our driveway, accurate to within 10 feet. A green battery icon showed 100%. I closed the laptop as Emily came down the stairs in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel. "Kids asleep?" she asked. "Out cold. Nathan wanted 3 stories." She smiled and opened the refrigerator. "He's got you wrapped around his finger. Always has." Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I went to work, reviewed site plans, attended meetings about stormwater management and road grade specifications. I came home, played with Olivia and Nathan, ate dinner across the table from Emily. She mentioned Spokane twice, once to confirm her flight time, 8:15 a.m. on Sunday, and once to ask if I'd be okay handling both kids' activities on my own. "Olivia's got soccer at 9, she reminded me, "and Nathan has that birthday party at 2. "I've got it covered," I said. "You're the best." She leaned over and kissed my cheek. Her lips were warm. I wondered if she felt anything at all when she touched me, or if I'd become just part of the performance, like the kids' schedules and the grocery list on the refrigerator. Saturday morning, Emily packed. I watched from the bedroom doorway as she folded blouses and slacks into her carry-on, tucked her toiletry bag into the side pocket. "How long's the conference?" I asked. "Just 2 days. I'll be back Tuesday afternoon." "Which hotel?" She didn't pause. "The Davenport Grand, downtown." I nodded. I'd already looked it up. The Davenport Grand was real, and they were indeed hosting a pharmaceutical industry conference this week. Emily's company was even listed as a sponsor. It was a good cover. Maybe she'd actually attend a session or two, pick up some materials to bring home as proof. "Want me to drive you to the airport?" I offered. "No, I'll just park there. Easier than coordinating pickup times." Of course she would. Sunday morning arrived cold and gray, typical March weather for Tacoma. Emily was up at 6, showered and dressed in black pants and a cream-colored sweater by 6:30. She kissed both kids goodbye while they ate cereal at the kitchen table, still in their pajamas. "Be good for Daddy," she told them. "Bring me a present," Nathan said through a mouthful of Cheerios. "We'll see." She ruffled his hair, grabbed her carry-on and purse, and looked at me. "I'll text you when I land." Safe flight. The Honda backed out of the driveway at 7:02 a.m. I watched from the living room window until she turned the corner at the end of our street. Then I opened the tracker app on my phone. The blue dot moved west on Route 16, heading toward the airport. I got Olivia and Nathan dressed, packed snacks and water bottles for soccer, found Nathan's shoes under the couch. By the time we were ready to leave, the blue dot had reached SeaTac Airport. It stayed there for 43 minutes. I stood on the sideline of Olivia's soccer field, phone in my hand, watching the dot. Other parents chatted around me about weekend plans and school fundraisers. On the field, 6-year-olds in bright jerseys chased the ball in an enthusiastic swarm. At 8:56 a.m., the blue dot started moving again. Not toward Spokane. East on I-90, yes, but then south on I-405. Then west on Route 18, away from the airport entirely. My heart hammered against my ribs. I zoomed in on the map, watching the blue dot trace a path I didn't recognize. Olivia scored a goal and her team cheered. I clapped automatically, eyes still on my phone. The dot stopped moving at 10:23 a.m. I zoomed in further. The location showed a property on a rural road outside Maple Valley, about 40 minutes southeast of Tacoma. No business name, just an address. 24780 SE 216th Street. I screenshot the location and opened a new browser tab. Google Street View showed a long gravel driveway leading back from the road, trees on both sides. The house itself wasn't visible from the street. "Nice game, Olivia," I said when she ran over for her water bottle. "You played great defense." "Did you see my goal?" "I saw it. Beautiful kick." We stopped for pizza on the way home. Nathan got sauce all over his face. I wiped it off with napkins and checked my phone. The blue dot hadn't moved. At 2 o'clock, I dropped Nathan at his friend's birthday party, a chaos of balloons and screaming kids at a trampoline park. The blue dot still showed the same location in Maple Valley. I sat in my truck in the trampoline park parking lot and pulled up the property records for 24780 SE 216th Street. King County Assessor's website. The page loaded slowly. Owner: James T. Brennan. Purchase date: November 2022, 4 months ago. Property type: single-family residence, 2.3 acres. Assessed value: $485,000. I searched for James T. Brennan on social media. 3 profiles came up in Washington State. One was 72 years old. One was a high school student. The third was 36, living in Seattle, worked in medical device sales according to his LinkedIn. His profile picture showed a man with dark hair and a confident smile, wearing a suit, standing in front of what looked like a convention center. His cover photo was a mountain landscape. Mount Rainier, probably. I stared at his face. I didn't recognize him. Had never seen him before as far as I could remember. But Emily had driven to his house instead of getting on a plane to Spokane. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Landed. Conference starts at 2. Love you. I looked at the timestamp. 11:47 a.m. The blue dot in Maple Valley hadn't moved since 10:23. I typed back, "Great. Have a good first session." 3 dots appeared. Then, "Thanks. Talk tonight." I picked Nathan up at 4, then Olivia from her friend's house at 5. We went home and I made spaghetti for dinner, heated up sauce from a jar, boiled noodles. The kids ate and I moved food around my plate. The blue dot stayed at James Brennan's house until 9:47 p.m. Then it started moving again. Back toward Tacoma, but not to our house. Instead, it stopped at a Hampton Inn off I-5, near the Tacoma Mall. She checked into a hotel 20 minutes from our house. I put the kids to bed, read them stories, tucked them in. Downstairs, I sat on the couch with my laptop and pulled up everything I could find on James Brennan. Medical device sales for a company called Vertex MedTech. Based in Seattle but covering the Pacific Northwest territory. LinkedIn showed he'd worked there for 8 years. Before that, sales positions at 2 other medical companies. His Facebook was mostly private, but his profile picture had changed 3 times in the past 6 months. In the most recent one, from 2 weeks ago, he was holding a glass of red wine. The photo was taken indoors, warm lighting, what looked like a nice restaurant. I zoomed in on the background. Couldn't see much. Just blurred shapes and ambient light. His Instagram was public. Lots of hiking photos, craft beer posts, pictures of meals at upscale restaurants. No photos with women. No relationship status listed anywhere. But he'd bought a house 4 months ago. November 2022. I checked my phone. The blue dot was still at the Hampton Inn. At 10:38 p.m., my phone buzzed. Emily. Long day, about to crash. How are the kids? Good. Olivia scored a goal at soccer. That's great. Tell her I'm proud of her. Will do. Sleep well. You too. Love you. I set the phone down on the coffee table and stared at it. She was 15 miles away, lying in a hotel bed, texting me like she was in Spokane. The morning light was already filtering through the hotel curtains when I woke. I'd barely slept. Maybe 3 hours total, spent watching the GPS tracker on my phone. Emily's car hadn't moved from the Hampton Inn parking lot all night. I showered, dressed, and drove to my office by 7. The building was nearly empty. I made coffee in the break room and sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen without really seeing it. My phone buzzed at 8:47 a.m. Good morning. Conference starts in an hour. Miss you already. A photo followed. Emily in the hotel bathroom mirror, wearing a charcoal business suit I recognized, holding a coffee cup with the Hampton Inn logo clearly visible. She'd angled the shot to show only generic hotel fixtures, white tile, chrome fixtures, standard issue towels. I studied the image. She looked refreshed, put together. Her makeup was perfect. There was no trace of guilt in her expression, no hesitation in her eyes. Miss you too. Knock 'em dead today. I set the phone down and opened my browser. I'd been thinking about this since 3 in the morning, lying in bed while Emily slept peacefully beside me before her trip. James T. Brennan's LinkedIn profile loaded. The photo showed a man with dark hair graying at the temples, wearing a blue dress shirt open at the collar. His smile was confident, professional. He had 500+ connections. I scrolled through his profile. University of Washington, graduated 2009. Started at Medtronic, moved to Boston Scientific, now at a company called Vascular Dynamics. His job title was Regional Sales Director, Pacific Northwest. His experience section listed responsibilities: managing key accounts, building relationships with cardiac surgeons and hospital procurement departments, traveling throughout Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. The same territories Emily covered. I clicked on his connections, scanning the names. It took me 4 minutes to find her. Emily Caldwell. They'd been connected since March 2022, almost a year ago. My coffee had gone cold. I pushed it aside and kept searching. Facebook was locked down, privacy settings tight. But his Twitter account was public, mostly retweets of medical device industry news and occasional personal posts. I scrolled back through months of content. December 14th, 2022. Finally closed on the new place. Time to make it a home. November 3rd, 2022. Offer accepted. Big changes ahead. I went further back. July 2022. Best conference yet. Great conversations, better connections. Medical devices, Seattle. There was a photo attached. A group of people at what looked like a hotel bar, drinks raised. I zoomed in, scanning faces. Emily was in the background, partially obscured by another person but unmistakable. Dark blonde hair, navy dress, that same professional smile. July 2022, 8 months ago. My hands were steady as I took a screenshot, saved it to a new folder I'd created on my hard drive. I labeled it simply, Documentation. The GPS tracker showed Emily's car leaving the Hampton Inn at 9:23 a.m. I watched the blue dot move north on I-5, then east on I-90, then into a parking lot near Bellevue. She stopped moving. I pulled up Google Maps and checked the location. The Bellevue Hyatt Regency, a large conference hotel near the convention center. My phone buzzed. Just got here. This place is huge. Going to be a long day. Another photo, the Hyatt's lobby, taken from an angle that showed the hotel's distinctive interior architecture. People in business attire moved through the frame, some carrying conference tote bags. I zoomed in on the photo, looking for details. The tote bags had logos, but I couldn't read them clearly enough to identify the conference. I opened a new browser tab and searched for medical conferences in Bellevue this week. Nothing. I tried pharmaceutical conferences, medical device conferences, sales conferences. Nothing scheduled at the Bellevue Hyatt this week. I sat back in my chair, staring at the photo. Emily was good. The image looked completely authentic. The lobby was real. The people were real. The setting was perfect. But there was no conference. I saved the photo to my documentation folder and checked the GPS tracker again. Emily's car hadn't moved. At 10:15, I called the Bellevue Hyatt. Good morning, Hyatt Regency Bellevue. How may I help you? Hi, I'm trying to confirm which conference room the Vascular Dynamics event is in today. One moment, please. A pause, keyboard clicking. I'm sorry, sir. I don't see any events for Vascular Dynamics today. Oh, maybe it's under a different name? It's a pharmaceutical sales conference? Let me check our event schedule. More clicking. We have a wedding reception this evening and a corporate retreat tomorrow, but no pharmaceutical conferences this week. My mistake, thank you. I hung up and added a note to my documentation file. No conference at Bellevue Hyatt, March 15th, 2023. Confirmed via phone call, 10:17 a.m. The GPS showed Emily's car still in the parking lot. I pulled up the property records for James Brennan's house again, looking for details I might have missed. The house had sold for $680,000. Public records showed a mortgage for $544,000, meaning he'd put down $136,000. That was a substantial down payment for a 36-year-old sales rep, but not impossible. Medical device sales could be lucrative. I searched for property records under Emily's name. Nothing new, just our house, purchased in 2018, currently valued at $520,000 with a mortgage of $380,000. I checked our joint bank accounts next, looking for any large withdrawals I might have missed. Everything seemed normal. Mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, daycare. Emily's paychecks deposited regularly, twice monthly. But I'd already found one credit card I didn't know about. I opened a new tab and went to annualcreditreport.com. I'd pulled my own credit report when we refinanced the house last year. but I'd never checked Emily's. The site asked for personal information. I had everything I needed. Her social security number was on our joint tax returns, stored in the filing cabinet in our home office. Her date of birth, previous addresses, all of it. I hesitated, my cursor hovering over the submit button. This felt different from tracking her car or checking phone records. This was accessing her credit report, her financial identity. It was a line I hadn't crossed yet. My phone buzzed. First session was great. Learning so much. Hope your day is going well. I clicked submit. The credit report loaded slowly, page by page. I scanned through it, looking for anything unfamiliar. There, a credit card I didn't recognize. Capital One Venture, opened in August 2022. Current balance, $8,047. I stared at the number. Another card, Chase Sapphire Reserve, opened in March 2022. Current balance, $12,033. My stomach dropped. A third card, American Express Gold, opened in June 2022. Current balance, $5,891. Over $26,000 in credit card debt I'd never known about. I pulled up our joint credit card, the one we used for everything, the one I checked regularly. Current balance, $23.40, mostly groceries and gas from the past month. Emily had been using these other cards for something else entirely. I saved the credit report to my documentation folder and sat back, trying to process what I'd found. The hotel receipts, the champagne, the phone calls, and now over $26,000 in hidden spending. I checked the GPS tracker again. Emily's car was moving now, heading back toward I-90. My phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but the area code was local. Hello? Is this Ryan Caldwell? A woman's voice, professional. Yes. This is Julie Preston from Cascade Family Law. You submitted an inquiry through our website last night about a consultation. I'd almost forgotten. I'd filled out the contact form at 2:30 a.m., unable to sleep. Yes, thank you for calling back. I have an opening tomorrow at 3 p.m. if that works for you. Tomorrow was Friday. Emily was supposed to be in Spokane until Saturday morning. That works. Perfect. Our office is in downtown Tacoma near the courthouse. I'll send you the address and some intake forms to fill out before the appointment. Thank you. I hung up and checked the GPS again. Emily's car was on I-90, heading west now, back toward the Bellevue Hyatt. Another text arrived. Lunch break. This hotel has an amazing restaurant. A photo of a salad and iced tea, the Hyatt's table settings visible in the background. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I opened my documentation folder and reviewed everything I'd collected over the past 3 weeks. The Riverside Inn receipt. The phone records showing 127 calls to James Brennan's number. The GPS data showing Emily at Brennan's house for 11 hours. The Twitter photo from July 2022. The credit report showing $26,171 in hidden debt. The confirmed lie about the conference. I had enough. More than enough. But I wasn't ready to confront her yet. Not until I talked to the attorney. Not until I understood exactly what I was facing. I typed a response. Looks delicious. Glad you're having a good time. The GPS showed her car still at the Hyatt. I watched it for another hour while I pretended to work, responding to emails, reviewing engineering plans I couldn't focus on. At 2:47 p.m., Emily's car started moving again. Not back to the Hampton Inn. Not toward home. South on I-405, then east on I-90. Back toward Maple Valley. Back toward James Brennan's house. The morning came with that particular quality of light that makes everything look overexposed. I'd slept maybe 2 hours, waking every 40 minutes to check Emily's location on my phone. Still at the Hampton Inn. Still lying. I made breakfast for the kids. Pancakes. Because it was Saturday and that's what we did on Saturdays. Olivia wanted to know when Mommy was coming home. Tomorrow night, I said, flipping a pancake that I had no appetite to eat. She texted me last night. Her flight gets in around 8. The lie came easier than it should have. Nathan got syrup in his hair. I cleaned it up with a wet paper towel while he squirmed and complained. Normal. Everything had to look normal. At 10:15, my phone buzzed. Emily, calling from Spokane. That wasn't Spokane. Hey, I said, wedging the phone between my shoulder and ear while I loaded the dishwasher. Hi, just between sessions. How are my babies? I could hear the smile in her voice. Bright, cheerful, completely convincing. They're good. Nathan's building something with his blocks. Olivia's watching that baking show she likes. Tell them Mommy misses them so much. A pause. Miss you too. Miss you too, I said, and meant it in a way she'd never understand. I missed the version of her I'd thought existed. The one who'd never checked into the Hampton Inn while pretending to be 300 miles away. I should go. The next panel's starting soon. I'll call tonight before their bedtime, okay? Sounds good. She hung up. I checked the tracking app. Still at the hotel. Still nowhere near a conference that didn't exist. The attorney consultation was at 2 o'clock. I'd arranged for my mom to watch the kids, told her I had to go into the office for a few hours to deal with a permit issue. She'd arrived at 1:30 with a bag of library books for Olivia and a new toy truck for Nathan. You look tired, she said, studying my face in that way mothers do. Big project at work, lots of late nights. Another lie. They were stacking up like cordwood. The law office was in a professional building downtown, 3rd floor, with a view of Commencement Bay that probably added 15% to the hourly rate. Mitchell and Associates, the frosted glass door read. I'd chosen them because they weren't the biggest firm in Tacoma, but their reviews were solid. Competent without being flashy. I didn't want flashy, I wanted effective. The receptionist led me to a conference room where a woman in her mid-40s was reviewing a file. She stood when I entered, extending her hand. Mr. Caldwell? I'm Patricia Mitchell. We shook. Her grip was firm, professional. She wore a gray suit and minimal jewelry, a watch, wedding band, small earrings. Everything about her suggested precision. Thank you for seeing me on short notice. Of course, please sit. She gestured to a chair across from her. You mentioned on the phone that you've discovered your wife is having an affair and you're considering divorce. Why don't you start from the beginning? I'd organized everything the night before. Now I pulled out the folder I'd brought, printed screenshots, the hotel receipt in a plastic sleeve, call logs, the GPS tracking history, the credit card statements. 3 weeks ago, I found this in my wife's car. I slid the receipt across the table. She'd told me she was visiting a college friend in Portland that weekend. The Riverside Inn is 40 minutes from our house. Patricia examined the receipt without touching it, then made a note on her legal pad. I checked our phone records. I passed her those next. There's a number she's been calling regularly since early summer. I looked it up. It belongs to a man named James Brennan. He works in medical device sales, same industry as my wife. She reviewed the call logs, her expression neutral. This week, she told me she was attending a pharmaceutical conference in Spokane. I opened my phone, pulled up the tracking app. She's actually staying at a Hampton Inn here in Tacoma. I've watched her drive to this address in Maple Valley multiple times. I showed her the map, the location history. The house belongs to James Brennan. Patricia looked at the screen, then back at me. You've been tracking her location. Through our family phone plan. It's a feature we both have access to. She can see my location too. And she doesn't know you're tracking her. She doesn't know I know about Brennan, or the hotel, or any of it. She made another note. What else have you found? I showed her the credit card statements. 3 cards I didn't know existed. Total debt of $26,000. All in her name only, but we live in a community property state. I'm concerned about my liability. You should be. She set down her pen. Washington is a no-fault divorce state, which means the affair itself won't affect the division of assets or custody. But the hidden debt is another matter. If you can demonstrate this was incurred without your knowledge and didn't benefit the community, we can argue she should bear sole responsibility for it. What about custody? Do you want primary custody? The question landed like a punch. I'd been so focused on the evidence, on documenting the betrayal, that I hadn't let myself think clearly about what came after. I want to protect my kids, I said. I don't want them growing up thinking this is what marriage looks like. That's not what I asked. I met her eyes. Yes, I want primary custody. She nodded slowly. The affair won't help you there. Courts don't consider it unless there's evidence it's affecting the children's well-being. But if we can establish that she's been financially irresponsible and deceptive, that may be relevant. The stronger argument will be stability. You have a stable job, you're the primary caregiver when she travels for work. She travels a lot, or says she does. How often? 2-3 times a month, sometimes more. Patricia made a note. We'll need documentation of that. Calendars, emails, anything showing the frequency of her absences and your role as primary caregiver during those times. I have our shared calendar. It has all her trips. Good. What about her income versus yours? She makes about $5,000 less than me annually. We both contribute to household expenses proportionally. And the children's care, daycare, school, medical appointments? I handle most of it. She picks them up sometimes, but I do the morning routine, pack lunches, schedule doctor's appointments. She's good with them when she's home, but I'm the default parent. Patricia was writing quickly now. This is helpful. In Washington, custody decisions are based on the best interests of the child. Stability, primary caregiver status, ability to meet their needs. These all matter. The fact that you're the one who's been managing their daily care while she's been traveling, ostensibly for work but actually conducting an affair, demonstrates a pattern. She looked up from her notes. Here's what I recommend. First, don't confront her yet. Continue documenting everything: her location, her supposed work trips, your caregiving responsibilities. Keep receipts for anything you pay for the children. Note every time you handle a school event or medical appointment she misses. I wasn't planning to confront her until I had everything in order. Good. Second, we need to secure your finances. You should open a separate bank account in your name only. Start directing your paychecks there. You'll still contribute to household expenses, but this protects you from any financial surprises. Like her draining our joint account? It happens more often than you'd think. I felt something cold settle in my chest. The woman I'd married wouldn't do that. But the woman I'd married wouldn't have spent the last 8 months sleeping with James Brennan while lying about conferences and college friends. Third, Patricia continued, I want you to consult a forensic accountant. With this much hidden debt, there may be more you haven't found. We need a complete picture of your financial situation before we file. How long will this take? The investigation? 2 to 3 weeks if we move quickly. Filing after that. Washington has a 90-day waiting period before a divorce can be finalized, but we can address custody and financial issues before then. 90 days. 3 months of living in the same house, pretending everything was fine while the marriage dissolved in slow motion. What do I do when she gets home tomorrow? Patricia closed her folder. You do exactly what you've been doing. Act normal. Don't let on that you know anything. I understand that's difficult, but any confrontation now could jeopardize your position. If she suspects you're planning to file, she might take steps to protect herself financially or create a narrative that makes you look unstable. You mean she might take the kids? I mean she might try, which is why we need to be strategic. She stood, extending her hand again. I'll send you a retainer agreement this afternoon. Once you sign it and pay the retainer, we're officially attorney-client. Everything you've told me today is privileged, but once we formalize the relationship, we can start building your case properly." We shook hands. Hers was still firm, still professional. Mine felt numb. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck and stared at the bay. Sailboats drifted across the water, white triangles against the gray. People were out there having normal Saturdays. Sailing, maybe stopping for lunch somewhere, going home to partners who were actually where they said they'd be. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Sessions are so boring. Can't wait to be home with you guys tomorrow. Love you." I stared at the words until they stopped making sense. Then I drove home to relieve my mother and feed my children dinner and put them to bed and lie awake in the dark, alone, planning the careful dismantling of everything I'd thought my life was. The blue dot on my phone hadn't moved in 43 minutes. I sat in my truck 2 blocks from Brennan's house, watching Emily's location marker pulse on the screen like a heartbeat. She'd sent me another text 20 minutes ago, a photo of a conference room with rows of empty chairs, a projector screen displaying the Meridian Pharmaceuticals logo. "Session starting soon. Miss you guys." The photo was a stock image. I'd reverse searched it in under 30 seconds. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother, Kevin. "You still coming to the game Saturday?" Olivia keeps asking. I stared at the message. Kevin had season tickets to the Sounders. Olivia loved watching the players warm up, loved the noise and the scarves and the hot dogs that cost $12. I'd promised her 3 weeks ago we'd go. 3 weeks ago? I didn't know my wife was living a second life. "Yeah, we'll be there," I typed back. The blue dot moved. I straightened in my seat, watching as the marker drifted down Brennan Street, turned left onto Maple Valley Highway. My pulse quickened. It was 2:47 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. Emily's fake conference didn't end until 5 p.m. according to the schedule she'd shown me. I started the truck and pulled out, keeping several car lengths back. Traffic was light enough that I could track her Honda without getting close enough to risk detection. The GPS gave me insurance, but I wanted to see where she was going with my own eyes. She headed west on a 169, then merged onto I-405 north. Not toward home. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. 20 minutes later, she took the exit for Factoria Mall. I followed her into the parking structure, hanging back as she pulled into a spot on the 3rd level. I parked 4 rows away, killed the engine, and waited. Emily got out of her car wearing jeans and a cream-colored sweater I'd never seen before. Her hair was down, loose around her shoulders. Not the professional updo she'd left the house with yesterday morning. She walked toward the mall entrance with her purse over one shoulder, checking her phone. I gave her a 30-second head start, then followed. The mall was moderately crowded for a Friday afternoon, mostly parents with strollers, teenagers cutting school, elderly couples doing laps for exercise. I spotted Emily's cream sweater near the Nordstrom entrance and kept my distance, moving parallel to her path 1 corridor over. She went into a jewelry store. I positioned myself near a sunglass hut with a clear sightline to the jewelry store's entrance. Through the window, I could see Emily talking to a sales associate, gesturing at something in a display case. The associate unlocked the case and pulled out a tray. Men's watches. I pulled out my phone and zoomed in with the camera, taking photos through the storefront glass. Emily was examining a watch with a dark face and what looked like a leather band. The associate was nodding, smiling. Emily said something that made her laugh. She tried the watch on her own wrist, holding it up to examine it. Too large for her, clearly meant for someone else. The associate wrapped it in tissue paper and placed it in a small bag. Emily handed over a credit card. One of the secret ones, probably. I photographed the transaction, the bag being handed over, Emily leaving the store with a small smile on her face. She checked her phone again, then headed toward the food court. I followed, keeping a family of 4 between us as camouflage. She ordered a salad from one of those build-your-own places, then sat at a table near the windows overlooking the parking lot. She ate slowly, scrolling through her phone, occasionally smiling at something on the screen. She looked relaxed, happy. I stood near a pillar 20 feet away, pretending to look at my own phone while watching her in my peripheral vision. She finished her salad, threw away the container, and walked back toward Nordstrom. This time she went inside the department store itself, heading straight for the women's section. For the next 40 minutes, I watched my wife shop for lingerie. She held up pieces against herself, examining them in the mirror. Black lace, deep red silk, things I'd never seen in our bedroom. The sales associate brought her different sizes, different styles. Emily disappeared into a dressing room with an armful of items. I felt sick. When she emerged, she was carrying 3 shopping bags. She paid with the same credit card, I could tell by the way she pulled it from the same slot in her wallet, and headed back toward the parking structure. I let her go. I had everything I needed. Back in my truck, I sat for a long time staring at the photos on my phone. Emily examining the watch. Emily leaving the jewelry store with her purchase. Emily smiling at her phone over her salad. The blue dot was moving again, heading south on I-405. Probably back to Brennan's house to deliver her gifts before driving home to play the exhausted business traveler. My phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Conference is wrapping up early. Should be home by 6. Can you pick up pizza? I'm too tired to cook. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. Sure, I typed. What kind? Surprise me. Love you. I drove to my office instead of going home. I needed to think, and I couldn't do it in our house, surrounded by the evidence of our life together. The photos on the walls, the kids' artwork on the refrigerator, the coffee maker we'd gotten as a wedding present. My desk was covered with project plans for a bridge retrofit in Puyallup. I pushed them aside and opened my laptop, creating a new folder labeled Documentation, March 2023. I uploaded the photos from today. The jewelry store, the lingerie, the salad in the food court where she'd smiled at her phone like a woman without a care in the world. Then I opened the spreadsheet I'd been building for the past week. I added today's date and logged the evidence. March 10th, 2023. Subject observed at Factoria Mall, 2:47 to 4:15 p.m. Purchased men's watch, ST $400-600 based on store display case. Purchased lingerie, 3 bags, Nordstrom. Lunch alone in food court. Claimed to be at pharmaceutical conference in Spokane. Conference does not exist. Verified. GPS tracking confirms subject was at J. Brennan's residence from 10:23 a.m. 2:43 p.m. The spreadsheet now had 17 entries. 17 documented lies across 8 days. I pulled up the draft email I'd started to Patricia Whitmore, the attorney I'd consulted last week. I added today's information to the summary and attached the new photos. Then I saved it as a draft and closed the laptop. Not yet. I needed more. I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with before I made my move. My phone buzzed again. Kevin. Olivia's asking what color scarf she should wear to the game. I told her green, but she says you promised she could pick. I smiled despite everything. Olivia took her soccer allegiances very seriously, even at 6 years old. Tell her blue, I typed. The one with the stripes. You got it. See you Saturday. I looked at the time. 5:17 p.m. Emily would be home in 43 minutes, give or take. I needed to pick up pizza, needed to get my face ready, needed to become the husband who didn't know his wife had spent the afternoon shopping for another man. I stopped at the Pagliacci on my way home and ordered a large with pepperoni and black olives, Emily's favorite. The kid behind the counter was maybe 17, with acne and a name tag that said Tyler. Rough day? He asked, probably reading something in my expression. Something like that, I said. Pizza helps, he said, with the earnest confidence of someone who'd never had a real problem in his life. Yeah, I said. It does. Emily's Honda was already in the driveway when I pulled up at 6:04. I grabbed the pizza and my briefcase and walked inside, arranging my face into something resembling normal. She was on the couch with both kids, still wearing the cream sweater. Her hair was pulled back now, twisted into a messy bun. She looked tired, convincingly so. "Daddy!" Nathan launched himself at my legs. "Hey, buddy." I set down the pizza and picked him up. "How was school?" "We made volcanoes with baking soda." "That's awesome." Emily stood and walked over, kissing my cheek. She smelled like the perfume she always wore. Nothing new, nothing that would give her away. "Thank you for getting dinner," she said. "I'm exhausted." "How was the conference?" I asked. "Boring, mostly. Same presentations every year with different slides." She took the pizza box from my hands. "I'll get plates. Kids, go wash your hands." I watched her walk into the kitchen, watched her move through our house like nothing had changed, like she hadn't spent the afternoon buying gifts for another man. "How was your day?" she called from the kitchen. "The usual," I said. "Bridge plans. Budget meetings." "Sounds thrilling." She returned with plates and napkins, and we sat down to eat like a normal family on a normal Friday night. The divorce was finalized on June 23rd, 2023, exactly 93 days after I filed. Emily didn't see it coming. I'd spent 2 more months documenting everything: the trips to Maple Valley, the hidden credit cards, the fake conferences. Patricia had been right about the forensic accountant. We found another $14,000 in debt I hadn't known about, plus evidence that Emily had been funneling money into a separate savings account since the previous summer. Almost $8,000, tucked away where I'd never think to look. When I finally served her the papers, she'd just returned from another business trip, this one supposedly to Portland. The GPS tracker showed she'd spent 3 days at Brennan's house. She cried. Denied everything at first, then admitted to a friendship that got out of hand. She never said his name, not once during the entire process. Like if she didn't speak it aloud, it wouldn't be real. The custody evaluation took 6 weeks. A court-appointed psychologist interviewed both of us, talked to the kids separately, reviewed my documentation of school pickups and doctor's appointments and soccer practices. Emily's travel schedule, the real one, not the fabricated conference itinerary, worked against her. So did the financial deception. I got primary custody. Emily has them every other weekend and 1 evening per week. She moved into a condo in Bellevue, closer to her sales territory, she said. Closer to Brennan, I didn't say. The house was refinanced in my name only. Emily took half the equity, minus her portion of the hidden debt. She kept her car, her retirement account, and the responsibility for the credit cards I'd never known existed. I kept the kids' stability, their school, their home. Brennan never appeared in court, never testified, never acknowledged his role in any of it. He was just a ghost in the documentation, a phone number in call logs, an address in GPS coordinates. Emily protected him until the end. It's been 4 months since the divorce was finalized. Nathan just started kindergarten. Olivia's in 2nd grade now and scored 3 goals in her last soccer game. They ask about their mother, but less than they used to. Kids are resilient in ways that break your heart. Emily's engaged to Brennan. I found out through Facebook, one of those mutual friends who didn't know what to do with the information, so they just posted congratulations publicly. The ring looked expensive. Probably purchased with one of those credit cards. I don't feel angry anymore. That burned out somewhere around deposition number 3, when Emily's attorney tried to argue that I was controlling and financially abusive for not knowing about her secret accounts. The judge shut that down quickly. What I feel now is something quieter. Relief, maybe. Or just exhaustion. My mom watches the kids 2 evenings a week so I can go to a support group for divorced parents. There are 7 of us who meet at a church basement in North Tacoma. We drink bad coffee and talk about custody schedules and how to explain adult failures to children who still believe in fairness. A woman named Jennifer started coming 3 weeks ago. Her ex-husband cleaned out their savings and moved to California with his personal trainer. She has twin boys, 8 years old, who like Legos and dinosaurs. We got coffee after group last Tuesday. Just coffee, nothing more. But it was nice to talk to someone who understood that trust isn't something you just choose to give anymore. It's something that has to be rebuilt from nothing, brick by careful brick. I still have the GPS tracker in a box in my office closet, along with printed copies of everything I documented. Patricia said to keep it all for at least 7 years, in case Emily tries to modify custody. I doubt she will. She seems happy in her new life, posting photos of weekend trips with Brennan, wine tastings, and hiking adventures. The kids are rarely in those photos. Sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks about what she destroyed. If she lies awake next to Brennan and remembers the life we built, the promises we made. If she regrets the choices that led her to a hotel room 20 miles from home, instead of the marriage she vowed to honor. But mostly, I don't think about her at all anymore. Last Saturday, I took the kids to the Sounders game with Kevin. Olivia wore her blue striped scarf and screamed herself hoarse when Seattle scored in the 83rd minute. Nathan fell asleep in the 4th row, head on my shoulder, sticky with cotton candy. Driving home in the dark, both kids passed out in the back seat. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not happiness exactly, but its quieter cousin, contentment. The life I had now wasn't the one I'd planned. It was smaller in some ways, lonelier in others. But it was honest. Built on truth instead of lies, on what actually existed instead of what I'd wanted to believe. The house was dark when we pulled into the driveway. I carried Nathan inside while Olivia stumbled along half asleep, clutching her scarf. I tucked them both into bed without changing their clothes, kissed their foreheads, turned on their nightlights. Downstairs, the house was quiet. Just me and the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic on I-5. I made a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table where Emily and I had eaten 1,000 meals, where we'd done homework with Olivia and built block towers with Nathan and planned vacations we'd never take now. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. "Thanks for coffee the other day. Want to do it again sometime?" I looked at the message for a long time. Thought about trust and risk and the courage it takes to believe in people after you've learned how completely they can disappoint you. Then I typed back, "I'd like that." The truth I've learned is this. Betrayal doesn't just break your heart. It breaks your certainty. It takes the story you told yourself about who you are and who you married and what your life means, and it reveals that story as fiction. You have to build a new story from the rubble, and it will never be as simple or as beautiful as the one you lost. But it can be true. And in the end, that matters more. Emily made her choices. I made mine. We both have to live with the consequences. Her with whatever guilt she carries or doesn't carry. Me with the knowledge that I loved someone who didn't exist, or who stopped existing somewhere along the way. The kids will grow up knowing their parents couldn't make it work. That's a failure I'll carry forever. But they'll also grow up watching me show up every single day, to do the hard work of being present and honest and whole. They'll learn that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every morning, a promise you keep even when it costs you something. That's the only lesson I have left to teach them. I hope it's enough. I finished my tea and rinsed the cup. Upstairs, I checked on both kids one more time. Nathan sprawled across his bed like a starfish. Olivia curled around her stuffed rabbit. Both breathing softly, safe and warm and home. Tomorrow, we'd have pancakes for breakfast. We'd go to the park if the weather held. We'd build another day in our new normal, one small moment at a time. The life I have now isn't the one I planned. But it's mine. Honestly, completely mine. And that, I've learned, is worth more than any beautiful lie.